you a little about Connect4. We are a volunteering platform where we match and connect volunteers to NGOs based on their various requirements. So while the concept of monetary donation is really well established in India, we focus on empowering people to donate their time and their skill to a certain cause. We're based out of Mumbai and we are operational in Bangalore, Pune, Delhi, Calcutta, and Ahmedabad. And the aim of our engagements is to ensure, value generation for volunteers as well as beneficiaries and the cause to which you all are volunteering towards. We have partnered with 400 plus NGOs across India and have connected them with more than close to 20,000 volunteers. If you would like to partner with us, and in case you haven't already, please fill out the KYC form, which I will be sharing with you in the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. We are currently running a fundraising campaign to equip 1,000 students from Udan India Foundation with a phone as well as internet connectivity for a whole school term. And our target is 35 lakhs, and we managed to raise close to about 28 lakhs so far. We're looking for contributions, and any amount upwards of rupees 100 would be greatly appreciated. I have put the fundraising link in the chat box, and if you could share this with your circles and even contribute towards this effort, we would be really, really obliged. And no amount is too small, and we're really hoping to meet this target soon. I also request you to fill out the feedback form from today's session, which will be shared with you in the chat box. Moving on, I don't want to take up anyone's time. So we received a few questions from all of you all regarding corpus funds and investment options. And what we have gauged from it is that we would need to start with the very basics. So I'd like to hand it over to Naushad to walk you through the entire topic of corpus building, corpus funds, and investment options, following which Nidhi will talk about the regulatory framework around these investment options. I request you all to put your microphones on mute if you haven't already, because we don't want there to be any disturbance when the speakers are talking about their piece. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we shall try to address them once Naushad and Nidhi are done with their pieces. So if we can just directly jump into it, Naushad, it would be great if you could just take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Kritika. First of all, am I again audible? Can everyone hear me? Kritika, can I be heard?
Yeah, you are audible.
All right, wonderful. So good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Pleasure to be in your midst, and on a very niche topic in fundraising, which is about corpus. Although everyone talks about the term corpus, few understand it, few give towards corpus, and few have a corpus. But at the same time, corpus is a very important component in a non-profit's life. In fact, many organizations, especially now in this current time in 2020, with the pandemic and the lockdown and all kinds of issues that are happening in terms of inability to raise funds and sustainability issues, I have found that organizations that over the years had built their corpus have been able to sustain themselves. So corpus, much as most donors are not too happy to give towards corpus, because everybody would like to see, if this is my 100 rupees, I want you to show me what you are doing with my 100 bucks. I don't want you to kind of quote unquote hoard it and put it somewhere in an investment which might probably fetch you some 8% or maximum, 8.5%. And so donors want to see value for the money given. So many do not give for corpus. Having said that, corpus is important, and we will discuss briefly in the next 5 to 10 minutes about how corpus can be built. So coming to the very basics, what is corpus? Corpus is essentially, many people tend to think it's a large sum of money which has come, which I'm going to put it in a bank deposit, and that is my corpus. Answer is that is not so. Corpus, somebody could be giving you 500 rupees towards corpus, and even that is valid. Or somebody could be giving you 50,000 towards corpus, and that would be valid as well. Corpus is essentially what we call in financial terms, and Nidhi will probably endorse that it's a capital receipt. Supposing I give you 100 rupees right now and say this is a donation, it will reflect in your income and expenditure statement of accounts. You know, every year you bring out your audited statement of accounts, and you have an income and expenditure statement, and you have a balance sheet. But supposing I give this 100 rupees, and this is a hypothetical figure, and say it is towards corpus, it will not reflect as income of your organization. It will go into your balance sheet and go into the corpus over there. So essentially, corpus is a capital receipt for your organization. Now, the next question people ask is, should I invest it? The law is silent in this regard. Your corpus can even remain in your savings bank account, but that is not prudence. Prudence dictates that if you have got a certain sum of money as a corpus or an endowment, you would want to invest it in the best possible option. Of course, as NPOs, we do not have best options today in terms of investments. It's very limited, and I'll come to that towards the end of my talk. So once again, to reiterate, corpus is a capital receipt, and it is not to be treated as income. Corpus goes straight into your balance sheet. And you generally enjoy interest on your corpus if you have invested. Even if you keep it in your savings bank's account, it will fetch you some interest. That interest will be your income, but the capital, so it can be notionally kept as a corpus in your books of accounts and need not necessarily be invested, but prudence says that you should invest it. What is necessary for any donation to be taken as a corpus? The Charity Commissioner in Maharashtra, for those who are registered in Maharashtra, or the income tax, requires that the intent that the donation is towards a corpus must be given by the donor in writing. Now, this could be a corporate donor, this could be a corporate foundation, this could be a family foundation, or an individual. The individual has to give those two important lines expressing intent in writing that I want this sum of money or a part of this money towards corpus. And this is where the little trick remains, because whenever you try to approach a donor, donors usually will say, oh, I don't know to give to your corpus. But if you negotiate or persuade your donor, then listen, I will use, again, a hypothetical figure of 100 rupees. 90 I will use for the project and program, but can I set aside 10% towards corpus? The donor says, okay, that makes sense. The donor has to give that in writing to you in the grant letter or the donation letter, and that's perhaps one way in which you can. But again, the requirement under law is that the donor must express that intent in writing, whether the entire donation or part of it can be taken to the corpus or not. So that's the third principle of corpus. Again, under law, there is no lower amount or higher amount where corpus is concerned. People often ask, I mean, is there a minimum amount that should be given by the donor to the corpus? The law is silent in this regard. Technically, a 500 rupees donation can also be taken to the corpus, or a 50 lakh rupee donation can also be. There's no upper limit or lower limit provided under law. Then another crucial question that people ask, can I dig into my corpus? The answer is corpus is a capital. If you have a cash flow problem, you are in the red. You right now do not have money to pay salaries. A grant which was supposed to come from a corporate, and the corporate says, no, all my money I've spent on COVID, or I've given it to PM Cares. I'm afraid I cannot give it. And you have salaries to pay. You have utility bills to pay. But you will say, I mean, we got the last 10,000 rupees sitting in our savings bank account. What do we do? If you have a corpus, provided the corpus is what we call unrestricted corpus. If the donor has given you corpus for a specific purpose, and that is what we call a earmark corpus. That is, the donor says, here is a lakh of rupees, and you will hold it as a corpus, and the interest will be used only for educating the girl child. Now you can't dig into something like that, because that is more in the form of a donor advised endowment, where the donor has told you what to do with the corpus. But if the donor has just given you as a corpus, as in a general corpus, which means unrestricted, yes, you can dig into an unrestricted corpus. But again, you need to go back into it. Has the donor put any restrictions on the use? Also, people say, is a corpus to be held in perpetuity? The answer is no, it's a capital. Whenever in need, you can break it. Nowadays, donors also give you this kind of a statement additionally, that you keep it in corpus for a minimum period of 5 years. And after 5 years, maybe because of inflation or whatever, you may liquidate the corpus if you like. If you get something like this in writing also from your donor, it will be helpful to you. So the donor also knows that for 5 years, it may be 10 years, these are hypothetical figures, But all this is possible because everything depends upon the intent of the donor. Or the donor may simply say it's towards a corpus, and there is an understanding that if we need to, we will dig into our capital. So yes, corpus can be used. The big question is, do people give for corpus? The answer, as I started off by saying, answer is no. Most people want to give you money for your programs and projects. Show me what you will do with my money. I don't want you to quote unquote hoard it. That's what they want. So people have even asked in the questions that I saw yesterday, can CSR funds also go towards corpus? Yes, there is a provision under the company CSR rules that CSR funds can be given by corpus, but historically I have not seen corporates give CSR funds towards corpus unless they have put it in the corpus of their own corporate foundation. So that's what happens. So I'll quickly come to the concluding part, which is about investments. The investment possibilities that you have are very, very limited. You obviously cannot invest in the shares and stocks. That is out for you. And there are multiple levels to look at. If you happen to be a charity which is registered with the Charity Commissioner in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, there is a state level charity commissioner who governs your investment. For example, in Maharashtra, there is section 35 of the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, under which it says what you can invest in. One common form of investment, and which is not affordable for everybody, is you can invest in immovable property. So it is a form of investment both under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act and the Income Tax Act. But I don't think anyone has that kind of money to invest in real estate. But Section 35 speaks in terms of bank fixed deposits and post office deposit schemes and stuff like that. Charity Commissioner's Office for organizations registered in Maharashtra has also a limited list of certain debt-based mutual funds in which you can invest. For those organizations that are not in Maharashtra and to which the Charity Commissioner or the Maharashtra Public Trust Act doesn't apply, you have to also look at the Income Tax Act. And there is a provision under what is called Section 11(5) of the Income Tax Act, which lists out where you can invest. Once again, it's a very restricted list, but it allows you to invest in any mutual fund, whether debt-based or equity-based. But there is a third angle that comes in. For organizations that are registered under FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, none of your foreign contributions can ever be put into any for a mutual fund. This is specifically disallowed. Now look at it. From select investments by the Charity Commissioner to put in any mutual fund by income tax, to Ministry of Home Affairs under FCRA saying no investment in mutual funds at all. But that's only restricted to your foreign contributions. All said and done, what's your safest bet? Bank FDs are safe. There is also the HDFC Trust Deposit Scheme, which has a AAA rating. But of course, it has a lock-in period of 3 years. And there are these kinds of certain investments which are available. There are, of course, options even in mutual funds for those which are not registered in Maharashtra. You can consider even equity-based mutual funds. But as the advertisement itself says, investment in mutual funds is subject to market risk. Please read the offer document carefully before investing. So with these words, I will conclude and I will request my colleague Nidhi to take over from here to talk to you about certain compliance related issues. Thank you.
Nidhi?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
I audible to everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes, so that was very candidly described by Noshir sir. The basic concept of corpus fund and what are the lists where you can invest and the fundamentally how the corpus funds are functioning and all that. So as per Income Tax Act, one thing is important, as he was also talking about the intent of the donor. So when such intent is obtained in writing that the donor is very specific about the donation is to be given to the corpus fund, then such grant is absolutely exempt from the tax under section 11(1)(d). So that's one benefit of exemption from tax. And then it's good that if the society is registered under section 12A, so that's also one of the benefit you'll get. And all the documents pertaining to maintaining the corpus fund, and all the expenditure, whatever you are carrying out, all the relevant documents in writing to be preserved for the compliance and regulatory purpose. Because what happens when the audit takes place, the audit trail has to be very, very clear. Sir has said this thrice or four times: the intent of the donor, the intent of the donor. So that proving itself, the documents proper in writing or in mail, everything should be very, very clear about what the objective of the particular corpus fund. So that's one of the very, very important parts. Secondly, as we had mentioned on various options where you can make investments and what are restricted also. So of course, equity and certain mutual funds you're not allowed to do. Also, you are restricted from investing in all these commodities. So one another point I would just like to say, say your gold breaks or your silver or any other commodity. So that is also one of the restrictions. Now, the permittable options, whatever are there, say we discussed like mutual funds registered in SEBI or according to the state laws of the particular state where you are allowed. Sir has already mentioned that. Apart from that, one or two things I'll just add. It's also that you can also deposit on certain bonds or debentures of approved housing loan or approved industrial finance corporation. So that is also there. But then again, everywhere it's always your return, your income part as well as what you're investing. So if you want like bank FD or some post office savings banks and all, then of course your income part is of course safe, but the return part is not very good as compared to the mutual funds, which gives the aggressive return. But then we have seen last month only, due to one of the result of Franklin Templeton's debt fund, there was a lot of crash in overall mutual fund market. So as it's always subject to risk, you have to see what's your risk appetite. And accordingly, then you can decide on which of the option to be taken for further investments. So these are the exempted provisions where you can always invest. And prohibition, I've already told you that commodities, gold, silver, and certain equities and all you cannot do. In certain public company shares, you cannot invest. So that is all there. And apart from that, we will also cover certain things regarding various other financial sources for NGOs, other than donations and other than your regular grants. So that is also topic to be seen and covered. So I'll also giving a few tips and briefings about the other sources, other financial sources. So now, apart from grants and donations, one of the good sources, your membership dues. Membership dues means here you are acquiring the membership with the large corporations, who in turns they pay you certain fees known as membership dues. And not only this particular fees, but they also helps in building the brand image of the particular NGO through their partnering events or whatever. So the indirect benefits is building the brand image and getting other donations from the rest of the public also. So this is one point. Another thing is whatever investments we have discussed earlier, and Noshir sir has also told about mutual funds and various other sources. So these investment income is very important. Now, again, based on the risk appetite, whether you are investing in bank FDs or mutual funds or any other option, this can be one of the part where the financial revenues can be earned by the NGOs. Next one is all your fundraising campaigns. So here the important point is there can be various methods by which the fundraising can be done. Traditionally, as the NGOs are doing through creating booths in malls or publics and promoting the NGOs. And recently, this is all about social media now. So a lot of events can be hosted online on social media. Like there can be some musical concerts, or there can be some quiz discussions, panel discussions, or it can be any film shows, book reading and storytelling sessions. So with this different kind of events posting also through social media platform, you can always raise out the funds by selling and gaining profits on the sale of tickets. during lockdown, like the COVID lockdown was also there. Even I had received various messages that some sessions are going on and virtual online concerts are going on, which will be going to help a particular specific project for the NGO. So this can also be a regular kind of a feature when we all are sitting at home and nobody wants to move out and actually face the crowd and attend the live shows. So this is one thing. Another one very good important point is about corporate matching schemes. Now, corporate matching schemes and programs, although they are not very common, but they are good in a way that in this particular kind of program, what happens is if any of the employee from a branded or a reputed organization is giving any donations to the NGO, and when the paperwork or all the documents pertaining to such donations are maintained properly and submitted to the HR of that corporate, then the organization, the particular company can also, corporate can also provide equivalent amount of donation, or it can be even more donation to the NGO. So this way also the corporate matching program helps a lot in raising through the other source, apart from your regular donations and the regular grants. So this is important. Now, one another thing which is commonly which can be pursued is all about your loan financing options. Now, loan financing options is easier method, quicker method. It can generate funds easily. But then the constraint, the greatest challenge is the risk of repayment. So if you feel that your books of accounts not strong enough to repay the particular loan financing option after a certain period of time, then it cannot be a very viable option for you. And then if you are not sure and you're doubtful about the repayment structure, then you should not seek for this particular option, which is loan financing. Next comes one of the a unique thing which can be done is about giving circle concept. So in giving circles means these are the group of people who are really seeking to help charities. So these group of people can be formal or they can be informal as well. So these people are at times they help NGOs while involving themselves into the day-to-day activities or any specific projects. Apart from that, they also help by giving funds and all your donations and funds. So this is a good method, but the only thing, the challenge, like in grant agencies and all, these are very commonly, grant agencies and all are very common in public, and so we know them and we can seek them easily. But these circles are very not very well known in the public. So to trace them and to track the right people is sometimes a very big challenge. So that's one thing. But if you know such giving circles, then that can also be a good source of income for the NGOs. And the last part is all about your any of the unrelated income or any of the residuary other income, which can be in the form of your well-planned financial planning and the exemptions you can take, the refunds you can take from the government. So that also adds up to the revenue of the NGO overall. And many of the things like crowdsource funding and all is well known to you. But the only thing I would like to add here is in the crowdsourcing or any other process, we can now always give a new touch through social media platforms. And that's very, very important. Here, what NGOs are doing is they are maintaining the page at social media. They are giving all the posts related to certain specific event or some program or anything, any of the specific project. And accordingly, those who are interested. So from here and there, everywhere, whoever is interested can make the contributions and donations too. So social media platform can always be used and effectively can be utilized for earning any other revenues in this way. So briefly, this was all the important points which I thought is to be addressed. And if anything more, Noshi sir, it feels like anything more can be added, we can add to it.
No, I think this is good.
Thank you.
This is good. Let's field questions in the interest of time. I mean, I can see a lot has come up in the chats, but Kritika, do you think it is better if people just raise their hands and actually ask it?
I'm okay with that. If that's a format that you all would like to go with, I'm more than happy to facilitate in that manner.
Yeah, okay. I think Sunil Arora, you had a question, yeah. Go ahead. Sunil, your mic is on mute.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think very short but straightforward and direct, and all the information got covered. I really wanted to know, sir, that when you get open donations and 85% of those donations have to be spent, on good charitable work, but 15% can be retained for your backup plans and things like that. Do the trustees have any authority to move that 15% or part of that 15% towards corpus, or if not corpus, can an organization create something which is like a sinking fund or something like that from that 15%? That's my question, sir. Thank you.
Sunil, that's a very relevant question. Thank you for drawing that that point. In any given fiscal year, you have to spend minimum 85% of the total income that you receive. Your income would include donations, grants, even your membership fees, or even there might be certain services, products sold. There's a total income. And let's say the total income is 100. Minimum 85 has to be spent. You can spend all 100 also. But minimum, that balance 15% under income tax law is unrestricted, meaning you can do whatever you like. Technically, you can even take it to the corpus, but most chartered accountants feel very uncomfortable taking that to corpus. So they suggest things like creating what is called a reserve fund or some kind of a contingency fund. And you can create those kind of funds also, which will sit somewhere in your balance sheet alongside the corpus. Sometimes you may be running a school and you will say, this is the new building fund that you're creating, or repair to the roof fund, any of those things. But yes, it's unrestricted and can be set aside. That is also one way of creating corpus, or some kind of reserves, if you
or
like.
Emergency plan, like the situation we are on.
Contingency fund, as I said.
Yes.
So very, very good question. Thank you for raising it, Sunil. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Naushir bhai, this is Akhil. First of all, thanks to you and Nidhi. You were talking about unless the corpus is a restricted corpus, we can use it as capital. If it is a restricted corpus, can we go back to the donor and ask their permission? And if we get in writing that it can be used for general purpose, will it be valid?
Yeah. It has historically been done by organizations. Sometimes donors had given it for a certain cause and the cause no longer existed. But you have to be hopeful that if it's an individual donor, the donor is still traceable, still happens to be in India, you can still reach them. And if they give it in writing, that yes, considering the change of the cause or whatever the case may be, you can use it for something else. If the donor is not available, you will have to somehow then go to any of your regulatory authorities like the charity commissioner, etc., to go for that change. But otherwise, it becomes a little difficult because this becomes what is considered in law a permanent endowment. That means the donor has earmarked it for a purpose, and it cannot be in your hands to change that because it's a clear intent given by the donor, which you cannot change. I see another hand up over there, some lady over there whose name I can't read.
Hello. Okay.
Najma,
yes. But for the Akhil, your question has been answered.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
And I would also like Nidhi to answer some questions. I do not want to monopolize answering all the questions. So, Najma, go ahead.
Najma, you will have to unmute yourself. You will have to unmute yourself, Najma.
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Can't hear Najma.
Najma, you'll have to unmute yourself because we cannot hear you. If you wish, maybe you can, if you don't know how to unmute yourself, maybe you can just type in your question in the chat box and then we will take it from there. In the meantime, if there's anyone else.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Who's this person?
Devan.
Yeah, okay.
A very basic question I wanted to ask. I'm sorry if this is very layman. How do we set up a corpus fund? Like, can you give me some steps? Like, it is the most confusing part that I'm thinking about right now.
I'm going to let Nidhi answer that. Nidhi, are you okay with answering it?
Sir, I can answer, but I think you are very specialized and you'll give a holistic picture to it.
Okay. I think if I have not been too clear, there are two ways in which corpus can be created, where you tell the donor to give you this one simple line. Here is my donation, whether made by NEFT, check, draft, whatever, to be used towards corpus of your organization. This is all that you need. If you have this letter, then this money, it may be 1,000 rupees, it may be 10,000, will not be treated as the income of your organization for that year. It will go straight into your balance sheet as your corpus or a capital. Is that clear?
Yeah, and we just have to set up a separate bank account where the money goes.
No, you don't need to have a separate bank account for corpus. Nowhere does the law says you need a separate bank account for this. I repeat, no separate bank account for corpus is needed. You need not even invest your corpus. You can leave it in your savings account also, no issues with that. But it may not be prudent to leave it in savings account. So it's only a matter of prudence. So far clear? You have more questions. Go ahead.
No, and the other thing was that...
Can I ask?
Sorry, yeah.
No, 1 second. I have not finished with this gentleman. Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
So just the question about the 15% part.
Right.
Won't that 15% be utilized for the cash flow of next year? Because then otherwise your cash flow will get affected, correct?
No. So in the next year, you will have you'll get your interest next year. You'll raise more donations. How is cash flow going to be affected? Okay, let me put it this way, that if you want to in any year use all your 100% of your income, you're fine with doing that as well. Here you have an opportunity that the end of the financial year, that is on 31st March, you find that you have spent 85%, or let's say you spend 90%. Now you've got this 10% lying. Now you can, best thing is to take it towards the contingency fund and keep it over there for whatever contingency you may have in the future. That's about it. How difficult is that?
Okay. Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, let's get the next person to ask.
Can I?
Najma?
Yeah, please. Thank you. I wanted to know if you use the corpus funds, do you have to take the permission of the charity commissioner, or otherwise inform them that you're using the money? No.
I repeat, only if there is a restricted corpus, that is the donor has given you for a certain purpose, you go to the donor for permission. But there is no provision, there is nothing under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, nor the Maharashtra Public Rules, which says for corpus you need to go and take charity commissioner's permission. As you know, if you want to, let us say, sell property, there's a provision which is called Section 36. You want to invest in immovable property, there's Section 35, but there is no provision for going to the charity commissioner to take permission. May I break into the corpus? It's a matter of simple common sense. I do not have money right now to spend, so I have a capital into which I'm going to dig. What we do in our personal lives, right now many people have lost their jobs. How are they living? They have liquidated some FDs and are living on that. They are making borrowings, etc. What we do in our personal lives, we do in the life cycle of our organization. No permission of the charity commissioner is required in this regard.
Thank you. One more question.
Just a follow-up question on this. So wouldn't that lead to breaking of the trust that the donor has placed in us, that it will not be used for anything but kept aside?
The donor has given you towards your capital, and when you want to use your capital, there is no breach of trust involved over here. A breach of trust is the donor gave you for a purpose and you change that purpose. That is a breach of trust. The donor said, this is a capital receipt, keep it as your capital. Now I have a genuine need, I'm going to break it. Okay. And I repeat, if the donor didn't want you to break it, then the donor would put that restriction of saying, this is a permanent endowment. And there are donors who make it as a permanent endowment. At least they used to do that in the past.
I have a question.
I think you're monopolizing the questions. There may be others who may want to ask questions.
No, just related to this, do we have to replace the amount?
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted, the money you use, do we have to replace the amount in the financial year?
Out of prudence, yes, but out of law, no.
Out of law, no. Okay.
Out of prudence, yes. That you used it because of an emergency. Let's put it this way: a grant was to come and it got delayed, so you broke into your corpus. Now the grant has come, so okay, let's kind of make. But that's prudence. That's not required under law.
I have a question.
Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the capital or from unrestricted fund, suppose if I invest the money into some projects wherein regular income comes in terms of sustainability, to what extent can this fund flow can come? Is there any limit as to
in terms of bringing in income.
When you say my income that is coming out of your projects, is it coming by way of any fees or something like that? Is that what you're referring? How is this income generating out of your projects?
Just for example, a construction project, I am building it for example, an examination center.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. Go slowly. You're breaking up. Go on.
I am investing money into a construction for example, to create an examination center. So I rent it out to companies or to governments or whatever, and regular money comes in. So
that will be part of your business income. That's a separate topic. That's not a corpus related issue. That's a topic in itself where business income is. But here again, it will be treated as income generating out of your property. That is, you have hopefully this land belongs to you, this building belongs to you, and if there is a rental will be considered as an income generated out of your trust property, and therefore perhaps may not be viewed as business income.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Hello.
If I want to use the money, the donation I've collected from crowdfunding to be set as a corpus fund, then how do I go about it?
The law is very clear. Unless the donor gives the intent in writing, monies from crowdfunding cannot be taken to the corpus. Even if you raise it from the corpus, reach out to the donor who gave you that money and get that intent in writing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hello.
Maybe if you would like to come in to answer any question, please feel free. I'm feeling very sorry that the questions I keep on fielding. So
absolutely. As and when I feel like adding something, I'll be there.
Put your hand up if you have any input to give to what I say, because I'm not the sole repository of all the knowledge. So I would like to wherever you can.
As and when it's required, I'll be there. But you are really explaining in a very, I would say technically also and candid also. So
hello.
So now we have a hand over here that I see. Hello. There is a doctor. Okay, there's this Dr. KK.
Hi, Naushir and Nidhi. Thanks for the session. My question is, do you have any interesting ideas or examples of non-profits who have actually managed to do this well, raising a corpus fund? You said not many people do it well. Do you have any examples of people who've done it well, whom we can read and learn from, or see, do our own research and learn from, but interesting examples of organizations who actually done it?
I repeat that most are not very happy to give to corpus, but the only few that I've seen, and literally few meaning a handful, where when proposals are made to any kind of, let's say a foundation, let's say typically it may be a Tata Trust, it may be a Gates Foundation, it could be whoever, the proposal itself has a built-in component that the project expenses is 100. But we would also like to set aside 10% of the total grant that you will give towards sustaining what we will start. And 10% is again hypothetical. You write in your proposal that it's just 15%. Maybe you start off with 20%. And most donors is that 20 is too high. Then you try to negotiate 15%. Most who will see a sustainability angle, that you're starting something and want 10% set aside to sustain what you started, most donors I have seen are open to that idea.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hello.
Okay, who else?
Hello.
I think Pranav Patil.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks Kritika for this opportunity. Naushir sir, I would like to extend Sunil sir's question that after spending, there is a law which says that you have to spend 85% of the total donations. So if in
not donations, your total income, not just donations. You may even have interest. You may even have membership fees. Total income, 85% has to be used. Do not just get too obsessed with donations. There's a world outside of donations.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So my question was, if in some case, if the NGO is not able to spend the 85% of expenses, remaining amount, can the whatever is the excess amount of expenses, can that be used as a corpus? Are there any other options to invest?
if you spend 85%, then the balance 15 can be taken to the corpus. That was made very clear to you.
No, my question was if the NGO is not able to do 85% of its expenses.
Okay. Then how can you invest anything in corpus? You are supposed to spend. So the answer is like this, that assuming that you have failed to spend 85% and you have your income, then you have two options. You have the option under income tax section 11(1), whereby any unspent income can be carried forward for use in the next year.
Okay.
Or if it is a large sum of money which you will not be able to spend even next year, there is option under section 11(2), where you fill up a form, online form number 10, to use it over a period of 5 years.
Okay. Okay, so my another one question was.
This is not related to corpus, but okay, thank you for raising it.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask that when you spoke about the consent part, that.
First of all, I thought we are concluding this session at 4:30. I have another webinar to go at 5 o'clock. So, Krutika?
Yeah. So I guess in the interest of time, we would have
As a corpus, I need to take a consent.
here, but I would like to thank Naushad and Nidhi so much for breaking down the subject.
I can take a few more questions. I mean, I can give out another 5 to 10 minutes max.
Okay.
Because I have to get on another webinar at 5, and I would like at least a 5-minute breather before that.
Sure. So we'll just take in the last few questions.
Yeah, we'll take the last 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah.
I can see a lady, Jane. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. It was really, really helpful. I just wanted to ask if you have, so for instance, with my organization, we have, like money that comes in through educational programs. So we offer educational programs to school and we get money from that. So can that money go, because it's not technically a donation, can that go towards a corpus? And also just
No, it can't, because that's your fee-based income. That's not, to begin with, that's not even a donation.
Right.
That's a fee. It's a fee you're charging for a service render.
Yeah. So
and thankfully your education, so it's okay. If you were not into education, your business income cannot be more than 20% of your non-business income.
Right.
But if you are exclusively into education, you might be safe with that.
Okay, and just another brief, can we get a letter in? So for instance, with this year particularly, we haven't been able to spend some of our money that we got from CSR donors due to the COVID shutdown.
Right.
So can I request them for a letter and in back, so for them saying that the money that they gave us for that project, since it can't happen this year, that they don't mind.
To use in the next year, yes.
Yeah.
Get a letter from your donor. Get a letter from your donor and go to Income Tax Online and exercise that option under section 11(1) to utilize the unspent in the next financial year.
Okay, thank you so much.
Or fill up form number 10 if you feel that even in 1 year you will not be able to use and you need a 5-year breather, then you can even fill up form number 10.
No, I mean whether they can give us a letter saying that we can put it towards a corpus instead. That's allowed.
If they give it, you'll be lucky, but I doubt they'll do that because the company is again required to spend and it gave you money to spend and not to put in a corpus. So it is very unlikely they'll give you such a letter. I'm afraid they will not give you, but they might give you to spend in the next year.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
All right.
So do we have time for just one more?
Yeah, we can take a couple of questions. I mean, it's 4:45. I would like at least 10 minutes buffer between the next, so maybe another 5 minutes. Yeah. Or maybe we'll continue with the conversation. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I see somebody's put up a hand here. Radhika.
Yeah, I have a question. Yes. So in case of Section 8 companies, initially members put some share capital. Is that corpus?
No, there is a different form of, I mean, it's a form of a capital. There are various kinds of capital. It's a form of capital. It again sits in your balance sheet. You can say it's a kind of a corpus. Let's put it that way. If I say a corpus is a capital receipt, then the share capital is a capital receipt as well. So leave it there. Don't get into the technicalities. Yes,
and if we have used it, then we can replace it and keep that entire money as capital, right, throughout.
The share capital is in a company that if there are any liabilities, then the liabilities are restricted to your share capital. Let's say the share capital with your company is 2 lakhs. if anybody were to sue your company, they will not be suing you individually as directors of the company. The maximum is, okay, we got a share capital of 2 lakhs of rupees. This 2 lakhs is what you will settle the amount with. So if you use it up, I mean, if there's any liability, you should be prepared for that. So I would say just leave it where it is. Leave your share capital intact. Don't mess with it. All right. I'm sure it's a small share capital, probably a couple of lakhs of rupees, right? Or is it much more?
No, it's very small. Yeah.
I thought so. It's the usual. So just as you could be a company limited by guarantee or limited by share capital. So you have a share capital over here, which is to restrict your liability of your company to that sum of money. Somebody were to sue you in terms of finances, that's the maximum amount. Your personal assets are not made liable. That's where a Section 8 company secures you as a board member. I see another hand up over there, Fernandez.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask you, sir, we get this unrestricted donation, corpus donation.
Right.
So how long we have to keep it, or can we use it immediately or something like that?
If you use it immediately, it's not corpus.
Yeah. So we have to keep it for how long, sir?
1 year, 10 years, 100 years.
Okay.
It's a capital, my dear. If after 45 minutes I have not been able to make it clear, then either I'm bad at communications or there must be something that I've missed out in telling you. A corpus is simply a capital. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the talk. I wanted to know if overhead recovery and any small service contracts we do, those incomes can be pushed into the corpus, please?
No, those are all business-related incomes. And no, they cannot be pushed into that. I repeat, corpus is created only in 2 ways. This is the third time I'm repeating, donor's intent, or otherwise after spending 85% of your income, the balance 15%. This is the third time it is being repeated in the last 45 minutes.
Thank you. And any award
if
money?
If you have not understood it, then I must have been a terrible communicator.
No, not really. Can award money go into the corpus also? Any awards we
provided the awarding agency has told you it can be taken to the corpus.
Okay, yeah,
Again, the
thank you.
intent.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Any last person? Any last question?
I have a question. Are these also valid in Karnataka, and is it also valid if you're registered under
Income tax is a central law. Income Tax Act is a central law. It is applicable throughout the Republic of India.
Great. And is it also applicable for the Yoga Act if you're registered under the Yoga?
Yoga comes under charitable purpose definition 215 clause 2. So yoga is now aligned with education under a definition of charitable purpose as given under section 215.
Great,
of
thank
Income
you.
Tax Act. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
everyone, so we're out of time now. It's 4:50 and I'm sure Naushad has to take some time off to prepare for his next webinar. But I would like to quickly thank Naushad and Nidhi for breaking down this extremely complex subject into such a comprehensive and concise manner for all of us. So we're extremely thankful for this webinar, and we've already received feedback on how useful this has been for everyone. Thank you so much for patiently listening to and taking all the questions. If you all do have further questions, Nidhi will be here to answer them. So please don't drop off the call. We will try to answer them in the best of to the best of our ability.
Okay. So I'll log off. What I can offer is that if there are last 2 or 3 questions, they can also be emailed to me. You may just collect it from them, the participants, and email it to me, and I will see whether I can respond to it in a couple of days' time. All right? So I'm logging off. Good luck to you all.
Thank you so much.
Good day, sir.
Hello, Nidhi. There is one question. Aditi, want you here? Just like the unused 15% that is there. For that also, do we have to get a letter of intent?
Question. Actually, your voice is
Okay, sure.
breaking. Can you type the question?
I will type it. Yeah.
Or Kritika, if you can make a list of the questions and you can also send me. How is it?
I'll definitely do that. But if in the for the time being, if any of the participants do have questions, then maybe we can take them for about 8 more minutes, and then we can all drop off the call.
Okay.
Yeah, I've asked the question. I've asked the question in the chat box.
So Divyanshu has asked for the unused 50%, 15%, can we directly put that in the corpus, or do we need an inert letter for that too?
The unused corpus, right? See, the basic definition itself suggests that once you have spent your 85%, that remaining then you can put it in the corpus. But for making the corpus fund also, if you want an exemption, then the intent letter of the donor is required.
What is that exemption you're talking about? I didn't get it.
So I'm talking about the exemption which is under section 11(1)(d). So that means that income can be, yes. So it's better to obtain that a letter from the donor. And that's what your intent will be clear. See, while I was introducing also the compliance concept, now in general, not related to this particular question, but now in general also for all the different questions, the thing is that whatever like you are utilizing or whatever expenditures are happening to prove the intent of the donor or to make it a corpus, what is important is your documents and paperwork for compliance and regulatory norms. So if you are through the whole process, see the government's intention or the auditor, whenever they are coming for the checking, it's very important to have a proper audit trail so as to prove your point. You got my so if you are maintaining that regulatory framework, then of course you are in a better position to negotiate. Otherwise, maybe like in your mind you are thinking that you will be treating this particular expense or income this way, but if the documents are not supporting or if the paperwork is not supporting, then whole of your process is futile. You have to be very particular about it.
Got it. The only reason why I asked was because corporates are generally not willing to give corpus. So I thought if this 15% can be taken without the intent as a corpus, then it would be better. But like you said, it is better to get the LOI.
Yes. See, that's what, your paperwork and documents has to be very good.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Hello.
Yeah, go on, Farzan.
Yeah. I in between it got stuck for me. Sorry to repeat again. As we were saying that corpus fund, whatever we have, we can invest in some some other to have us like regular income. So can you repeat that part alone, that in a short note? I didn't get it in between. So.
Could you please repeat your question?
Yes, you have written the question. Have you written the question?
Okay, I've just typed it. I'll send it now.
Yeah, actually, voice is breaking, I guess. So better.
I've sent. Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
So his question is whether you can invest corpus.
Hello. Yeah.
Say that 85% of income should be spent. So should it be spent? What is it? Should be spent on what?
Whether we can invest the corpus fund for the regular income of an NGO. That's my question. Hello.
Maybe his question is whether you can invest your corpus fund. You can take the corpus and invest it in some manner.
No, but how? See, corpus fund means, see, now the point, again, I'll be going to the fundamental basics. If the corpus fund is for a particular intent, restricted to that particular object, then how can you invest in the market in mutual funds or any other schemes?
No, actually, I'm saying I got a donor has given us the fund to use it for whatever purpose they have. Like it's a corpus fund, they give a free hand to use it whatever we can for us. Okay, so we don't have. Let's assume that we don't have any CSR fund for some times. We can use the corpus fund, or whether we can invest that in some other way, whether for getting income for an NGO itself.
So again, if the donor has given with that intent, not putting, it's not the unrestricted fund, and if the donor had given it with the intent of investing, then again it's the intent of the donor, and then only it's the form of the corpus. So then that's the point. So specifically case to case, then you have to see that for whatever purpose the intent has, the intent of the donor was, and accordingly the fund has to be utilized.
Yeah. If a donor is ready to use that for generating a like fund for an NGO, that if you don't have that, in that case, I can use it, right? That's what my question was. I think you were explaining, but when my call has got, I didn't able to get that point. That's why I'm asking again.
Okay, that's fine. So see what happens. The main important point you have to keep in mind is for forming of the corpus fund, the donor gives you the intent in writing, and that's what I was telling. To obtain a letter or an email in writing, clearly mentioning for what purpose that donation is.
कौन है कितने लोग हैं 68 लोग हैं कौन कर रहा है अच्छा गोल्डी कर रहा है क्या
Sorry, I just muted someone.
So once you have obtained that particular letter, the intent is very, very clear, and accordingly the investment can be done. I mean, the corpus fund can be used.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Sarjun. Nidhi, we have a question from Sunil Sharma. He's typed it out in the chat box. He asks, do we need to put initial settlement amount in the bank mentioned in the trust at the time of forming the trust? Let's say we have rupees 5,000 settlement amount by the settler, and how to account for the books. I'm not sure if you've understood it, but it's been typed out. If Sunil is here, maybe you can explain this question better to Nidhi.
Okay. So then we can answer it separately in a mail.
Okay. All right, sure. Are there any other questions anyone might have?
Can we use backdated donation as a and we can get a LOI from the donor for corpus creation?
See, to be very frank, now you are asking me how to convert black money into white. I mean, something that, something that it depends. No, if the donor is, how you can request donor to give a backdated letter, and how a donor will give, I mean, this is all.
No, not a backdated letter. I'm not asking for a backdated letter. I'm asking, they gave money for something else, but now can I ask them a letter of intent because I did not use it? Can I ask them for a letter of intent to use that as a corpus? That is what I'm asking for.
Letter of intent you can always ask, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, correct. Cool. Not converting black money into white.
That's what.
Hello.
Yeah.
No, it's not about black or white money. I was just giving a candid joke. I mean, it was just about the concept, not applying here that concept, but just to make it a candid, I was just giving an example. Yes. Kritika, you're telling something?
I think we have a question coming from Ajay Pandit.
हाँ, मैं हिंदी में बोल पाऊंगा. मैंने चैट बॉक्स में अपना क्वेश्चन भी लिख कर दिया है, और मेरा प्रश्न ये है कि क्या जो मतलब कॉर्पस फंड रेस करने के लिए ऑनलाइन या ऑफलाइन कैंपेन क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, या मतलब हम लोग कम्युनिटी बेस्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, तो क्या कुछ डोनर्स जो हैं जो कॉर्पस के लिए तो सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं, या हम लोग ऑनलाइन भी इस तरह का कुछ कैंपेन शुरू कर सकते हैं?
See, corpus fund and endowments are basically, they are very, very niche kind of a fund. So usually I have not seen practically anyone running any campaigns for raising out the corpus funds. That's the thing. So practically I have not seen anyone raising this specific niche fund through online campaigns. But now still, as this is all about social media and digital world, so I guess if you have some connects, you can of course connect them digitally, write mails or something like that can always be taken place, but not exactly an online campaign. I don't think so. It's a very feasible option.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Are there any final questions? We'll be just taking the last couple of questions because we've already crossed the time. It's 5 p.m. So just in the interest of time, we'd like to wrap up out here. It looks like we don't have any questions anymore. Do we? Doesn't look like it, but thank you so much, Nidhi, for taking these questions patiently and answering them to the best of your ability. We will be writing into you with the questions that have gone unanswered today. And hopefully all the participants should hear back from us within a week or 10 days time, because we have to account for the fact that our speakers have very busy schedules. So it would take a little time for that. But thank you so much, all of you all and all the attendees, for being here today. I'm sure that most of you all will utilize this information as well. And if you all do have any further questions, you all can feel free to add them to the feedback form, which we've shared with you in the bottom right-hand corner of the chat box. And we hope to see you at our next webinar, which is going to be on the current trends in employee volunteering. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you.